Hi guys, so welcome back to another video. In these clips you're gonna see my second time going off property with Gabbana for a jumping lesson. I haven't actually watched these clips back properly. I only had a glance through the last course I did before we left the property in the truck. And yeah, now I'm gonna voice over them and talk about how the lesson went. As you will see in the video, I make a couple of mistakes and I'm gonna leave them all in there because that's life with horses. Unfortunately, we can't be perfect all the time, but I feel like social media only shows people's absolute best bits. And where's the fun in that? Because we're all human, we all make mistakes, and that's how we learn. So yeah, Gabbana and I only started jumping again in the middle of January. She had an injury and we spent a long time rehabbing from that. She was actually ready to start jumping last September, but I then decided to transition her to barefoot not because she had an issue with the shoes as such. Well, she did. She kept pulling them off. And because she lives outside a lot of the time. In the winter she's stabled at night time, but in the summer she lives out all the time, and she kept pulling a shoe like once a week, not always the same shoe, a different shoe each time, and it was just really hindering my progress. And then I had to wait for the farrier. So yeah, after some discussions we went barefoot, and then I gave her another couple of months to adjust to that before I start jumping, because changing to barefoot was a big enough change by itself. Never mind adding in jumping for the first time in well over a year and a half. So yeah, here we are warming up for my lesson with Maurizio. It's my second time going training there. I posted the first lesson on my Instagram. The first lesson we only did really small, simple things because he didn't know me or Gabbana. So yeah, this time we just did some coursework. Gabbana and I are together both super rusty. She hasn't jumped for so long, and I rode the least I've ever ridden in my entire life last year. We moved from Belgium to France. Gabbana was still rehabbing, only like walking and trotting and slowly coming back into work then. So yeah, both of us have not done anything for quite a long time. I didn't have any other horses to jump last year, so I literally hardly jumped at all last year. It's the least I've ever jumped in my whole life since I started jumping. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty... Feels good to be back jumping with her, but I'm definitely making some silly mistakes that I maybe wouldn't have made before her injury when I was jumping regularly. So yeah, you're gonna see all that in this video. Here we're just warming up over the two fences on the diagonal. She can be a little spooky in the beginning, so it's important that I keep my legs. Here I think we're gonna jump down the line. Yeah, I'm way too far, but managed to get her back for the 6 strides. She's also pooping and jumping a little bit a little bit energetic because I put my leg on for the long stride. And yeah, because we're kind of out of practice, I'm just not like trusting myself. I've hardly really jumped at all, as I've said, so I just kind of need to find my rhythm with her and kind of get back into the swing of things. Now we're going to be jumping once a week, so hopefully that should come a little bit sooner. You can see she had a little look at that jump. We put it up to an oxer. She had a little look, but the good thing about Gabbana is she may look at jumps or things, but if you put your legs on, she will always go. She's like a really weird mix of brave and spooky. When I had the first lesson, you can see I'm a little bit far there, she's a little bit spooky. He had put an oxer there and put the water tray up. When I had my first lesson here, which was only posted on my Instagram, she was a little bit like backwards, not backwards, but like a little bit not covering the ground. She was a little bit spooky. She hadn't gone anywhere to jump in literally forever, so yeah, she was a little bit backward that day. Today she was a lot more forward and her stride was a lot longer, and then I had to adjust to that. You'll see I make some mistakes like that, not waiting for the jump. She's a little spooked there. I managed to get her back for the 6 strides. In this lesson we were just really working on very simple coursework, landing on the correct lead, which she didn't there, or doing a flying change. Flying changes are still a little bit difficult for Gabbana. She's very long, and if I don't have her sitting on her hind end, she can change late behind or land disunited. So that's something we've been working on. I was supposed to do 7 strides there and I did 6. So yeah, I just kind of pulled up and we discussed a little bit. I had rode a little bit too much on the inside line, and I could give myself a little bit more space for the 7 strides by riding a little bit more of a broken line. I rode a little bit too direct the first time, so here we're going to go again. A nice little pop over the yellow oxer. But yeah, all of these things that we're working on in the lessons, although we haven't started to jump bigger yet, which I'm very much looking forward to, but I definitely want to have all the basics figured out before we start jumping bigger, because you can see I make a couple of mistakes today, and that's okay when we're jumping small, but I don't want to be making stupid mistakes like that when we're jumping bigger, because it's just not fair on Gabbana, because she'll always try and save us. She's so good, like she literally will forgive all my mistakes, but I don't want to use up all my tokens for that. So yeah, I want to make sure that I'm really riding her well and putting her in nice places, and that we really have found our rhythm together, because both of us are pretty rusty. And we have our first show planned at the end of the month, so this is kind of just all prep for that. So yeah, that's just all preparatory. We're just trying to get prepared for the first show. You can see here the first time at the double. She hasn't jumped this yet. She's has a little bit of a look at it. I have to encourage her. Good. And then after, yeah, once I've done the double once, it rides a lot easier. But kind of the first time I do a jump with her or a course with her, she can be a little bit spooky, so I have to put my leg on, which is something I'm going to have to deal with at the show, because when we go back to a show, she obviously won't have jumped there before. So she's going to be a little bit spooky, because I can kind of have like two different horses depending on the day. Like the first time I took her here to jump, as I mentioned, she was a little bit more backward, and her stride wasn't covering as much ground, whereas we went in the second day here and I had a totally different horse. She was a lot more forward and her stride was a lot longer, and then the distances rode a lot easier for me and for her. So it's just trying to balance that, because obviously when I go to the show at the end of the month, I haven't done a show in like 13 or 14 months now. Yeah, literally it's like nearly 14-15 months since I've done a show, and even longer for Gabbana. So I'm imagining that the first day we jump, she might be a little bit more like spooky and backward, and her stride might be a bit smaller, and I might have to like maybe ride some inside lines to kind of make the distances in the show. But then yeah, my trainer was saying the second day she should be a little bit more easy for me to ride, but it's just a little bit about me learning to ride the horse that I have on that particular day. So yeah, here we're just doing the course again. You can see I've managed to do the the broken line to the yellow oxer in 7 strides instead of in 6, which is obviously as it was intended to be ridden. So yeah, and here you can see the 6 strides is riding nicely. Now we're just doing simple, I say simple things, very essential things that we need to work on before I start to jump higher with her again, because before she was injured and when we lived in Dubai, we were competing up to 125, but now, as you can see in this lesson, we're not jumping up to that height yet, but both of us need a little bit of time. You can see she had a look at the double there, and because I had to put a little bit of leg on, she landed disunited, and it can take me a little bit of time to kind of get her to fix her canter, and it's about trying to do it without like upsetting her too much, because she can kind of be a little bit stressy about the fly changes, because when I got her she used to like leap or jump every time you do a flying change. Now the changes are getting better, but still she's like naturally like a big and long horse, so it's very important that I have her sitting on her hind end, kind of engaged through her back and her core, and light in the forehand so that she actually can change behind, which is something that still needs a bit of work on, especially like when I jumped the double going the other way and had the pole down, where we both lost a little bit of focus. If I'm not quick enough to think about my change and think where I'm going, then it kind of leads to that problem where she's a little bit disunited and I don't have the canter established. And when I'm around a course, like not having the canter lead sorted out can kind of really affect your next jumps or lines, and obviously I don't want that. So you can see now we're kind of traveling around the course nicely. We're actually getting near the end of the lesson. We didn't do a huge pile. She's not super fit for jumping yet, obviously, because we only started jumping again in the middle of January. But overall I was pretty happy with this lesson. I made a couple of whoopsies, but all in all it was a good lesson. I learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to doing more and hopefully learning from the little mistakes that I made.